Hi, my name is Jeff Hayes. I'm the Transportation Planning Manager in the Growth Management Department of Alachua County. The purpose of this presentation is to let the public know some of the information about the I-75 Relief Task Force process that the Florida Department of Transportation is currently engaged in. Here's a little brief background on the I-75 Relief Task Force process. First off, the task force was appointed by the Florida Department of Transportation. There's a number of task force members, and I'll go into the task force area here in just a minute, but each county has a representative. Our county representative is Commissioner Charles Chestnut. Next, the task force began meeting in December of 2015. The focus of the task force is twofold. One is looking at relief options for the I-75 corridor for some of the congestion and safety issues that are present on I-75, as well as exploring the potential future corridor options between the Tampa and Jacksonville area, the Tampa Bay to Northeast Florida area. The next task force meeting is on June the 24th, 2016 at the Williston Crossings RV Resort, and I'll give you a little more information further on about how to be involved in that if you have any questions or comments. First off, this is a presentation by Alachua County. The County Commission sent a letter to the task force on February 2nd of this year. The focus of that letter was that they felt that the task force should focus on improvements to existing corridors rather than to be looking for any new highway corridors. Beyond that, of course, to avoid sensitive ecological resources and significant environmental resources. And then to the extent that there was new transportation capacity needed in the corridors, to look for the provision of increased freight and passenger rail service. Additionally, as this issue has moved forward and the department has identified some potential new corridors, there's of course some growth management impacts that the county would want to look into that would be part of the process. First off, here's a map of the study area. In the red outline, you see the Tampa Bay to Northeast Florida study area, looking for the potential for a new corridor to connect those two regions. And then within that is the I-75 Relief initial focus counties within that study area, which include Hernando, Sumter, Citrus, Marion, Levy, and Alachua counties. I'll just point out on this map, there's the existing Suncoast Parkway, which comes out, it runs parallel to I-75. It's a turnpike facility, a toll facility, runs north through Hernando County, currently ends at US 98. The Department of Transportation has plans and is programmed to go ahead and extend that up to State Road 44 in Citrus County, and that's where it's currently programmed to end, but part of the discussions are continuing that corridor north. The first part of the process that the department went through and the task force looked at was looking at land suitability within the study area. If you look at this map, this is the draft land suitability map that the department came up with. Basically, the areas that are the darker shades of red are the most sensitive areas, so those are your environmental areas, your state parks, your wetland resources, your floodplains, things of that nature. The analysis basically did a composite analysis of all those types of features. And the darker red, the shade, the more sensitive that area is. And then as you see the pinker, it's still sensitive, and then into the yellow, it's less sensitive in terms of those resources that were identified. This is just zoomed into that map into Alachua County. You see, of course, your Paynes Prairie, Lockaloosa Lake, Orange Lake, Nunes Lake, the wetlands that surround those features in Alachua County. Of course, you see your San Velasco Hammock in the more north central part of the county, and your additional resources, your Santa Fe River springs, and those conservation resources as well. As the department and the task force has moved through the process over the last 6 months, the department has come up with 2 potential future corridors, and I'll zoom in on those in a minute, and is looking to improvements of some of the existing corridors in the region to look for capacity improvements on those facilities. And I'll zoom into this map to look specifically at Alachua County. The department is looking for potential increases to capacity to US 301, improvements to the rail facility or the rail capacity, improvements to I-75, things such as truck lanes, such as dedicated toll lanes that would be for passenger vehicles in that corridor. Then, of course, improvements to US 41 and the rail in the western portion of the county. but then has identified two swaths for potential new corridors. These would be new turnpike facilities, basically an extension of the Suncoast Parkway north into north central Florida. And I'll just zoom in on this map. You can see those a little bit better. One of those corridors would end south of the county line, potentially maybe even cross over I-75 to get to 301. And then from there, there's also another potential corridor that would extend the Suncoast Parkway north through the western portion of Alachua County. And these swaths are sort of areas of interest. They're conceptual swaths. They're rather wide, 5 to 7 miles across. Looking at, at State Road 26, it goes all the way from basically I-75 and Newberry Road to the city of Newberry and US 41. And then, of course, extends all the way to the county line. So there's great potential for how a new corridor could be routed through this portion of the county. One of the issues that the county, now that there is a swath identified in Alachua County, would be interested in pursuing, and some of the potential impacts, of course, are growth management issues that go along with any new high-speed highway facility. This photo in the top left portion of this slide shows this is actually the Suncoast Parkway in Hernando County, just north of the Pasco County line. And when that facility opened in 2000-2001 timeframe, there was a lot of growth and development that came in, new subdivisions that popped up right along the interchanges and spreading out from there, of new growth that was really enabled in some ways by the facility due to the fact that now commute times into the Tampa area for residents in those areas would be shorter than they would have been previously without that high-speed toll corridor. And this picture in the southwest, or excuse me, in the lower right portion of the screen here this is actually in Gainesville. This is a historical photo, and it's just to point out that often land use follows transportation investments. And this is the rail line in downtown Gainesville on Main Street at University, where it used to run historically. And it just shows that one of the reasons that downtown Gainesville is where it is today is because of the investment that was made in the rail facility. And those types of issues where land use follows transportation are still seen today with new high-capacity corridors. This is the Alachua County Comprehensive Plan, and just to point out that the new swath that's proposed in the western portion of Alachua County sort of includes the western urban cluster. That's the area around the city of Gainesville that's within unincorporated Alachua County. That's the area that's the Alachua County Comprehensive Plan allows for urban and suburban type growth and development. Outside of that area is the green, that's rural and agricultural, and the idea in the comprehensive plan is that there might be low density, very low density residential use, but it's really for agricultural and rural purposes. And the idea that a new corridor could potentially go through there would have some potential major impacts on growth and development in that area. This is a similar map. This is actually the countywide visioning map that was approved in the 2006 timeframe by the Alachua County and all of the municipalities in Alachua County who participated in that. And it just shows a similar theme that the idea was that there should be a green belt area between Gainesville and the cities in the western portion of the county, Newberry, High Springs, Alachua, Archer. And the idea that a new corridor could have potential impacts on growth and development and start to blur those lines between the different municipalities. And there, I want to go real quickly and do a brief overview with our Map Genius software. If you go online, you go to mapgenius.alachuacounty.us. There's a way that you can go and see how this corridor may or may not impact your property if you have property interests in the vicinity of this swath. Amongst other things. If you go into tools and layers, you'll pull up this map, and if you go to transportation layers, you can turn on and off the corridors that the FDOT, the swaths that are currently proposed south of the county line, and of course going through western Alachua County, which is the bulk of this presentation is about. If you zoom in and actually if we go and look at some of the environmental resources that are present in this area, turn on our strategic ecosystems, which are adopted ecosystem areas, and our wetlands map. There's very few wetlands and floodplains. There are some within these swaths, but primarily the western portion of Alachua County has unconfined soils, so there's not as much wetland resources, but of course that leads to it being a high aquifer recharge area and fast transfer times from the western portion of Alachua County to the springs along the Santa Fe River. If you look at this area, there are a few strategic ecosystems. You have the Hickory Sink ecosystem. You have the Kanapaha Prairie ecosystem, and some of the other resources that are available. The Suwannee River Water Management District has the Santa Fe Springs Conservation Area between Newberry and High Springs, just north of US 441. That would potentially be within this area as well. Of course, from a growth management perspective, a lot of this in the eastern portion of the swath that's in the unincorporated area, there's the town of Tioga, Hale Plantation. There's a lot of developed areas that are in this location. You would think logically that if there was to be a new corridor, it would potentially be west of there, potentially west of Jonesville, where it might be more likely to be able to put a new corridor in without having to take homes. But then again, that leads to the increased potential for new growth and development outside of what's currently planned and programmed as urban and suburban development. And so those are some of the potential concerns that the county has. This tool is available online for residents to use. You can actually put in your parcel number, your last name, or your address and actually see if your property is located anywhere near this swath and if you have any potential issues or questions. Going back to the presentation and just talk about next steps here, the community workshop is being held. The Florida Department of Transportation is holding a community workshop here in Gainesville, or just outside of Gainesville at the Best Western Gateway Grand at Northwest 39th Avenue and I-75. That's actually being held on June 7th. There are 2 remaining task force meetings, so if the public is interested in getting involved in the process, there's a couple of ways to do that. One is to attend the community workshop. Another is to attend one of these task force meetings. These will be when the task force will be making its really final recommendations to the Department of Transportation on what options should be on the table in terms of looking at I-75. And just to go in real brief detail, I didn't spend a lot of time in this presentation talking about the purpose of need that's been laid out by the Department of Transportation. I think there potentially are some questions there, and it hasn't been demonstrated yet whether or not either of these 2 new corridors would address that. But that information is available on the Department of Transportation's website, www.i75relief.com. That's also where residents can leave comments for the department and the task force to consider if you can't make one of the community workshops or task force meetings. Beyond that, the county is going to continue to be invested in the process. County staff, myself, and my colleagues will be keeping track of the process and analyzing any modeling data that comes out or any of narrowing of these corridors at all or continuation of them being considered. The county does have a task force representative. That's Charles Chestnut, Commissioner Charles Chestnut, who sits on the task force. And going forward, if the public has any questions for me, you can reach me at, my name again is Jeff Hayes. It's JHAYS at alachuacounty.us, all spelled out. That concludes the presentation. Thank you very much.